This is Jews Talk Racial Justice with April and Tracie.
A weekly show hosted by April Baskin and Tracie Decker.
In a complex world, change takes courage.
Wholehearted relationships can keep us accountable.
Okay. So I think we're both in alignment that we really enjoyed recording our last episode and that it would be great to continue that robust, energized, uplifting energy into this next episode and continue this theme around joy, and specifically pair it more intentionally and explicitly with how we do our work to advance racial justice. Sound good?
Yeah.
You in it to win it with me?
Let's talk about joy.
Yeah. As a continuation to our last episode, I thought it would be really cool if we talk about some applications more practically around what joy can look like in our work. And I thought we could just run through some different ideas and ways that we can weave joy into what we're doing. Oh yes, that is what I wanted to make sure to also add as a part of the intro, that we will now be just 2 weeks out from a very draining, intense electoral cycle. And a number of us are still in the throes and feeling the pangs of longing and unmet needs from the COVID-19 pandemic. I know that it's starting to hit me more profoundly in my being as Thanksgiving approaches, which, side note, I have a very complicated relationship with, or just a solidly unpleasant relationship with. But that was the last time I was with my parents in person. And so it's been a long time. And as that approaches, oof. And so all the more so that it could be useful to take some time to think about what are the ways, really pragmatically, that we can bring more joy into our lives, simultaneously bring joy and racial justice into our lives. Ooh, ah.
Yeah, and this conversation felt important. This continuation of our conversation felt important to me, April, because I think in our last conversation, we talked about joy almost reactively, like to counter rage or to counter negative emotions. And when you suggested we talk about this, I really like it because you're actually talking about being more proactive about, cultivating joy as opposed to pushing away or processing and then moving on. So lay it on me. What's your first piece of advice? Lay it on me.
Okay. Is dance. Is
more
dance. Yes. Jazz hands. Is incorporating more movement, fun movement into our racial justice work. I think a really great example of this recently were some of the videos coming out from Philly of activists who were working to advocate and support democracy and ensuring that all of the mail-in ballots were counted and that everyone's vote counted. And there were counter protesters that seemed like they were quite formidable and loud. And this group of Jews chose to fully and joyously as themselves. So I don't think everyone was necessarily wearing talitot or talits, but I think I recognized a couple of my friends who are clergy, right? So they were in their Jewish attire that has meaning for them, which to me, that in and of itself can be a joyous thing of donning elements of our identity. And I think this was recorded on Friday and possibly also on Shabbat. So the ways in which they chose to show up fully as themselves and also likely engage in ritual. And the video clip that I saw that brought me a lot of joy was to see Jews joyously partnering with other folks, carrying signs that said Jews Against Fascism and dancing to James Brown and being fully embodied. And for me, especially as a multiracial Jew, I loved that, to see different elements of the various cultures and identities that make up who I am being present in this moment of advocacy that they were engaged in. So dancing, I incorporated also at times in trainings or in group gatherings that I do that's optional for people. I invite them to just groove a certain part of their body or fully get up and dance, so that there's a range of opportunities. But I think it's joyful, one, just because dance can be fun, and also it gets us out of fully being in our heads. It can help us to be more present in real time. What's another idea that you have, Tracie?
Well, I want to talk about dancing very, very quickly. Two things that are coming
Please.
up for me. One is that as a Reformed Jew, it's not always comfortable because I think our German heritage tells us to be very decorous, and decorum is so important. But it is decidedly Jewish to dance, right? I'm imagining King David dancing with joy before the Lord, and so that those are the two sort of warring factions in my head. There's the like my German ancestors who are saying, no, you must be decorous in synagogue. But then there's King David saying, no, we dance before the Lord. That is how
Let's get
we,
down.
yeah, we use the body God gave us to show our joy. And
Yes.
so
Shabbat
anyway,
Shabooty.
those were
Let's
two things that
move.
came up for me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
And
so
just music in general, I guess I would add.
music and song.
Music. Yes, not just dancing, but singing as well, that I think we don't do enough of in our lives in general. We should be singing more.
Yeah, we should.
It's
And
right
it's one,
there. It's
it's
right
help.
there.
It's right here. It's so helpful in the context of movements. One of my spiritual teachers from whom I've learned, Sonia Choquette, she talks a lot about in one of the courses I've taken from her about engaging spirit, that song is one of the best ways to engage our spirits. Music gets us out of, again, that very cerebral place that is both elements of Jewish, is a part of Jewish experience in terms of study, but also is very much a part of white supremacy culture, and often a total ignoring and numbing of access to our other knowing and sensing centers, such as emotion and spirit and our body and physical experience. So when I'm looking to raise my spirits, in addition to smiling, that's one thing, it's a personal April internal trait, is that in the morning at times while I'm journaling, I'll remember, like, oh yeah, if I just smile for 10 minutes, that's literally going to release chemicals and hormones that are going to make me happier throughout the rest of the morning. So typically when nobody's watching at times, if I can remember, when I'm in my higher functioning state, at times I'll just proactively smile. And another thing that I can do is sing songs. I like singing Billy Joel's I Am the Entertainer. I love singing Jewish summer camp songs. I am the entertainer and I know just where I stand. Anyway, so fun song to sing. I also occasionally like singing songs like um uh oh my gosh, not De La Soul. April, Tribe Called Quest. A Tribe Called Quest's song, Electric Relaxation. And I like to sing it as if it's a show tune. Like I love to sing this hip hop song, like though it's a show tune. Like, when you check it out, you got me mesmerized. Wish you anyway, I can't sing that in those lyrics. Anyway, so street poetry is my everyday. But yo, I gotta stop when you drop my way. Anyway, so
Love it.
if I was working at the club, you would not pay. Yo, my man Five Diggy, he got something to say. I like him brown, yellow, Puerto Rican, and Haitian. Name is Five Dog from the Zulu Nation. Anyway, so there's that. But you see what I mean?
Yeah, I love it. I have two things. One, I think I've told you this before offline, that my friends at the Open Church of Maryland, shout out to Open Church of Maryland, like to
Woo
say
woo.
that, and they say it's an African saying that where there is no music, the spirit cannot dwell. And so that really like speaks to what you're talking about, in terms of connecting with spirit, the internal and external. And then the other thing is, the power of song, to access all emotions, right? Not just
Yes.
joyful, but all emotions. There's a lot of
Yes.
comfort in song as well. I do this thing. I told myself this story that if President Obama had been the president when Tree of Life happened, that
Mm,
he would have gone to Pittsburgh and he would have learned the words to Ose Shalom and he would have sung Ose Shalom. And like I imagine him singing Amazing Grace. Um, and I don't know. And I can very clearly hear his voice singing Ose Shalom. And sometimes when things get really bad in the world, I like come back to this imaginary song of Barack Obama singing Ose Shalom. And it just brings me comfort. And that, like, talk about the power of song. Like, it never happened to my knowledge, at least not in my hearing, that he sang that song, but just imagining him singing it and then
right.
my
But he
singing
totally could. It's
along,
totally within the realm of possibility. Yes.
it just brings me so much comfort. And so sometimes, like every once in a while, if you catch me like just singing "Oh Say Shalom" to myself, I'm actually singing along with Barack Obama because I need some comfort
Oh,
right now.
say shalom, bimromav. Yeah, I'm playing it. What I love about that is it's both song and solidarity, right? So now you're combining music also with multiracial collaboration and how comforting that would be and how much safer one would feel. So and also mindset work. Like I love that. Like that's the kind of work that I do in different ways around creating scenarios in my mind that create the conditions for me to be best poised to do the powerful work I want to do, which is a joyous practice in and of itself as well. So yay,
I think
dance and
the relationship, the relationship too, is what I'm sorry I cut you off.
no, you're fine.
But
No,
that,
we're building on each
but
other.
that's,
Please.
but that's exactly, and that's the other piece of it, right? So I don't know Barack Obama. I wish I did, but that relationship and that solidarity is part of the joy, and like the relationship I have with you and with my colleagues and comrades and with my family. All of those things also bring joy. The relationship,
Yeah.
I think, the
Which leads
way
us to our
and
next,
the
exactly.
yes, please. That's what I was
Yeah,
trying to
so
set
that
you
was
up.
another one of our points, right? No, exactly. It's to segue. So you're segueing beautifully and actually like filling it out really beautifully, right? That like another way of engaging with joy is through relationships, that it's not just a thing that's the right thing to do and is incredibly strategic. And I think at times people can get overwhelmed by the challenges that come with it and they lose sight of like how awesome and life affirming relationships are, especially when they're across lines of difference. So please continue.
No, that's exactly it. Across lines of difference or forged through common and or both and forged through common values and common cause. And some of the
Yeah, and
relationships
sacred
that
affinity relationships.
and the relationships that I've
I'm so
made in this
excited.
work are
Go
some
ahead.
of them. I know it's amazing. It's joyful. That's the whole point. Because some of these relationships that I've made in doing this work are among the most important and joyful in my life.
Totally. Totally. And I love what you said though, like how you highlighted that, because I think it's important to really emphasize meaningful and transformative and accountable and accomplice-ish accompliceness. I don't know what the word is, what the made up word I'm looking for is, accomplicized relationships across lines of difference, but also relationships with people with whom you share identity. Do you have another seamless segue or should I bring up one or two more things?
Yeah, let go for it.
So
You go.
another one is celebration. And I think it's its own thing. I won't combine it with another one. Is celebration, and I think there is both the expected part of celebration, like celebrating there's the obvious points that in general in our society and in common culture is common / oppressive culture is commonly accepted around key life cycle moments
Right.
and rites of passage around graduations. But there can be so much more celebration
Yeah.
around progress, around hitting key milestones, around progress toward milestones. There can be celebration, like even just the SHEHECHEYANU of blessing a new moment or reaching a certain point, that is, oh, like anytime we do something for the first time, or not only that, but also make a courageous choice, even if we haven't gotten the desired outcome we want of just for the positive reinforcement, that we can create some of our own positive reinforcement by internally or with friends or on teams saying, we don't know what the outcome of this new program launch is going to be, but wow, did we put a lot into that and work so well together? And that is so worth celebrating and honoring.
Yeah, it's two things. Two things are coming up for me. One is acknowledging accomplishment, which is what you're saying, which I don't think we do enough in American culture in general. We don't
Nope.
acknowledge accomplishment. Um,
Mm-mm.
and the other is being mindfully present to what's happening, whether it's accomplishments or other things. I had one of my best friends in graduate school. I was at the University of Chicago, and my friend Leah, hey Leah, Leah's from LA originally, and so we're there. We're like 25, and it's our first winter in Chicago, and it starts snowing, and she's never seen snow before, and she like knelt down like to feel the snow and said "SHEHECHEYANU," and it was such a model for me to like truly feel the newness, that not just because snow wasn't new to me, like whatever, but I don't know that there's anything in my life that at that point in my life I would have had the wherewithal to just be that present and that celebratory of the new experience. And so it really stayed with me, because we're talking about 20 years ago now.
Yeah,
So
somewhere
it was
around
a
there.
long time ago, but I have this very vivid memory of Leia like touching the snow and like trying to catch it on her tongue and saying "SHEHECHEYANU." And I was like, she's crazy. She's not crazy. She's smart. She's
Right?
present. She's,
Mhm.
really mindful. And so, and it shouldn't just be about the first snow. It should also be about, as you say, like the first program, or the first time I'm trying a new thing, or the first time I'm playing with a new idea in my mind, or reading a new thinker, or whatever it might be.
And getting
So I
curious
think
about
that's
a new thing, like
exactly, or
choosing to
even
remain present with a question and not avoid it, but actually say like, I'm going to start wondering, and I'm going to celebrate that that's a new step for me.
and to a point that you have made offline, but I think repeatedly, like in that moment of like, oh wow, that idea is a little uncomfortable for me, but I'm not going to push it aside. I'm going to get curious about it. Celebrate that. Like let's actually acknowledge it's a small step, but it's an essential one. So let's celebrate it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And like huge exponential progress and growth comes from consistent micro implementation. And the more we can honor each of those bricks we're laying to form this big structure, how much more love and intentionality and appreciation can go into something that's worth celebrating, but to celebrate it along the way. Since so much of our time is spent in the journey, not the destination, I think the more joy we can bring into and make our joy less conditional on that one fixed time. That's like, to speak of something that happened 20 years ago, like my woman who's like an aunt to me, Aunt Carol, who was our cantorial soloist for our synagogue. She talked to me about my bat mitzvah experience as it was leading up to it. And she said it would be like a stop sign on the road, or like an exit, a sign out in the road, that it would seem like it was so far away and it was taking forever. And then like it would just be gone in an instant. Like as you get closer and closer and closer, you're like, okay, it's coming. And then it's like there, and then it's not there. Right. And I just think that people deserve to have their experience of joy not be those one-off milestone events. Like, what does it look like to be more joyful throughout the campaign experience of making sure that you're eating snacks and savoring, like, and celebrating that this group of people are coming together day in and day out, that in part, like, I'm going to make a case here for that actually being the most holy elements of our work. And if we can mirror that insight that we have around Shabbat, about Shabbat being the most sacred holiday, because it is the one that happens the most frequently, that is most in our lives, then what are the elements of our justice work, and specifically in the context of this podcast, our racial justice work, that are regular and everyday and mundane and can be made more holy through presence, as you named, which to me is another, which would be the third component, or not the third, but the third in this next series outside of the music and dance and relationships. We can round it out with celebration, and presence is another way to access joy. That's also a through way to joy, is that at times we're not able to access joy because we're not in the present moment. We're hanging on to things from the past or terrified about the enormity of the future, but we just gotta, like, going back to that brick metaphor, like, lay that one brick and be present with it and listen to great music, like be listening to Shaka Khan or Stevie Wonder or Barbara Streisand, like whatever, whoever is doing it for you, to be like grooving while mindfully being present and noticing the sacred divinity in the mundane, um, in the clothes we're wearing, in the body wash, our, although with the pandemic, but like just the sense that people have. Like often I notice that it's a weird thing that I do at times. I'll hug someone and be like, you smell nice. Cause I
Do that
generally
too.
don't. Yeah, I don't wear a lot of stuff because I'm honestly sensitive and a lot. But when people, I should ask them what they wear. Cause like that I like. That is a very, and often it's just their detergent, but I'm like,
Right. They
that's,
just smell clean. I do that
yeah,
too.
it just
You
smells
smell so
fresh.
good. Oh,
But
it's
like is
Tide.
note is savoring. And to me, so part of the presence, the present piece is also savor. Another way of saying that is to savor um the sacred mundane in the present, um to savor people's attention, to savor how many people showed up to something, to savor us remaining present, even though in some parts of us would prefer not to, like the scared part of us would prefer not to, but we're letting the more courageous, more sage, more wise element of our being rule the day and say, yes, this is hard, but this is worth it. And this person has something to teach me, and it's hard to listen, but I'm going to remain present. Um,
I
and
love it. I love that. There's there's this saying about the story about the Buddha, which I actually don't know where it was written originally, but it's come down to me as a story where the Buddha ran into someone on the street, on the road, just walking, and the person was like, who are you? What are you? Are you a god? And he was like, no, I'm not. And are you touched by, like, what's special about you? And he kept asking the Buddha, like, what is it that's different? I see that you're different. How are you different? And finally, the answer was, I'm awake. And I think that answer is like, it's about the presence, being present in this moment for exactly what you just talked about, not focused on the past or the fear of the future, but just being fully present um, to the present moment. Um, it's an awakeness that I strive for, and I rarely achieve, but it's definitely something that I'm working on. And that story in particular is coming up for me when you were talking about just the Buddha sort of saying, like, I'm awake.
And you know what? That reminds me of a story that it is in large part inspired, but not exclusively, by Buddhism. I was taking a class that was led by a Jewish man who'd been trained by Thich Nhat Hanh. I forget the exact name, if he was ordained or he was a disciple. I forget the precise language. And now he's since gone to rabbinical school. And I believe he might also be either a physician, or like he has a doctorate, like a physician or a psychiatrist. Very learned, lovely man who's now recently gone to rabbinical school. Um, in his later years, and he taught a multicultural class. I forget what it was called. A lot of people took it as a Kush class, but then they were transformed by it. And I took it like, I'm really into this. Like, I'm doing meditation. So I'm excited to have a class that pulls from different faith, the mystical elements of different faith traditions around mindfulness and presence. And toward the end of the class, he had a bag of little statements like, may you be mindful, may you be different things, and was having them people take it out. And when it got to mine, which I felt so memorable and meaningful, but at the time I was like so disappointed and miffed, I pulled mine out and it said, may you be. And I looked at it and he was like, yes, may you be. Right. And I didn't like it. I was initially disappointed. And then the profundity of that has continued to hit me in waves in the hours and days and years that followed. That part of presence is about just being and noticing, and that it's not about having to be a particular way. Like, I think that it is useful and helpful to have practices that help you cultivate in being in a more elevated state. But that is all predicated and based upon the fact that fundamentally you are okay with being wherever you are at the moment and have a sense of how to be. May you just be. And my partner likes to be a loud West African Senegalese man. So, and actually I think my mother-in-law just came in. So we should probably wrap this up soon, because West African Senegalese Muslim family time is about to ensue.
Joyfully.
Very, very joyfully. Okay. So, and then the last piece that I think is important to round us out, that it aligns with other things that we've talked about, is appreciation, which is really aligned with a lot of celebration of different things, is to engage in the practice of, rather than critiquing, like, there's a place for observing something and saying, here's what we want to do better next time. But it's also so important to appreciate and see what's good and sacred and acknowledge all the goodness that's there. Because at times people, I think, over prioritize critical feedback over acknowledging any situation what went well that we want to grow and build on to make further progress. Like, it's not just as a soft, gushy, feel good fluff. No, it's actually really strategic and pragmatic.
There's a reason that
strategy.
there's a reason that our tradition gives us the phrase, may you move from strength to strength. It's not soft. It's not, a softball. It is actually a very smart way of improving what works. So I hear that, from strength to strength, appreciation.
Yeah. And to me, that also is just a more divine and strong and wise way of approaching things, of valuing the goodness that is present, and to build on that, as you're saying, from strength to strength, and to water the seeds that we want to flourish. So, all right. I think this is good. I feel like there's so much more we can say about this, and I'm hoping that we get feedback from folks, because I think that there's ways that we could give more examples or do a deeper dive or make a list that's twice as long. But I feel like we have satisfied
hopefully
the well-rounded episode for, yes, exactly. So I hope you, beloved listener friend, got some really great value out of this. And as usual, please feel free to shoot us a question or a suggestion if you were like, oh my gosh, I've recently started doing this work, or I've been doing it for years, and there's this core thing that brings me so much joy that y'all totally missed. Let us know.
Yeah.
And also try on, please, like, both absorb this. I know when I find a podcast that's really juicy and gives me things that challenge me, at times I will re-listen to it again. Feel free to do that if it's helpful, and also try on and let us know how it's going for you. And with that, I wish you a joyful day and a joyful set of weeks ahead of us as we move toward 2021 and further into 5781.
81.
81. Thanks for tuning in. Our show's theme music was composed by Elliot Hammer. You can find this track and other beats on Instagram at Elliot Hammer. If this episode resonated with you, please share it and subscribe. To join the conversation, visit juicetalkracialjustice.com, where you can send us a question or suggestion, access our show notes, and learn more about our team. Take care until next time, and stay humble and keep going.